sedatives, pills and drugs and dope. Every day is brighter with a bit of Santa's hope. Hey!
Alright, no more dicking around. Let's get to the game.
Are you afraid of talking sentient robots?
I'm writing erotic poetry and painting stuff. I'm chasing life.
Don't you wish we could coexist worldwide despite our differences?
I thought we left you murderers behind in Arizona.
Do you think circumcision should be illegal? Well, I sure hope you answered no to all of that, as Colorado has lately turned into a place which features a healthy amount of speech-imbued robots, synths, and even foreskin-thieving, human kite-making, or human burger-making raiders.
We're out of everything except the clown burger.
That would much rather take you out than take you out. Developed by the remnants of the OG gamer crew from Interplay Entertainment, who rebranded themselves as In Exile Entertainment, which was initially a joke by Brian Fargo made about him leaving Interplay in the first place, Wasteland 3 is the latest installment in its series. It's a squad-based, turn-based, choice-based RPG with a based narrative.
I'm Mother Nancy Reliance, and this is my husband, God President Reagan.
That'll make you roll your eyes and say, hey, I saw this in Fallout before, at least 2 times. The game's set in the post-apocalyptic world in the land of the free.
Take it off? On my knees? Okay.
And in case you were never told that you needed a car that shoots an energy wave in the colors of the American flag as it hums the national anthem, I agree with you, but you can have that in this game. Story! You play as an Arizona Desert Ranger. Same thing as in Wasteland 2, except there's a catch. You're not actually in a desert this time, or at least not the warm kind. Instead, the squad you find yourself in, Team November, was sent to Colorado so as to help the Patriarch maintain order among the chaos wreaked by his children. Why were you sent from a sand biome to American Siberia? Well, how the fuck should I know? Oh, yeah, the Citadel blew up in the last game, and the Patriarch offered help in exchange for completion of his mission. I always forget that when I'm admiring human kites and the complexity of robot interactions in this world.
Error. Expected error did not occur.
Gameplay.
Some people would agree that what makes or breaks an RPG is the compendium of stats, skills, attributes that govern skills, skills that unlock perks, and any combination of that kind, while others would rather argue that Shia's login screen has better music than most contemporary AAA titles. And while I agree with both of them, Wasteland 3 has quite the selection of skills to try out. The only boo-boo that comes out of this is that, in regards to character build manufacturing, replayability is limited, as having 6 characters in a single party allows you to max out the majority of those skills in a single playthrough, and unlike non-squad based RPGs, you'll see most, if not all, the possible builds and perks on your first playthrough anyway. The gunfights in this game remind me a lot of Gun Rocks. The only difference is, that Gun Rocks is a dead game, and it doesn't have a story. It also doesn't tell you which units you can hit in certain tiles. It's safe to say that it just lit up a nostalgic fuse inside of me, and it reminded me that I don't hate squad-based RPGs, I just really suck at them. While the game doesn't taunt you to try out 200 different build types, hush, my child, it does taunt you to spend time carefully picking things you know nothing about in the character creation screen.
Choo-choo! Here comes the pain train!
Some of the character backgrounds even have specific noises when you click them. Seriously though, I spent just over 1 hour in there. It's good fun. Wasteland 3 also taunts you to see what all the different paths and endings in the game are. You will be facing choice making right from the beginning of the game. The first time you hop onto the world map, you're being radioed 2 different situations almost at the same time, where you're supposed to lend a hand, but only given the time to react to one of them, helping either the Arapaho Caravan or the Hoon Homestead have consequences much later in the game. I personally got ambushed by one of the Hoons in the world map for following the Patriarch's orders, and there's a good bunch of similar situations throughout the game. One time I was given the choice to help a slaver who had lost a blonde slave in Colorado Springs. You can tell her to fuck off, kill her, or snatch her slave for her in return for a special key code that unlocks an even more special room in your newly acquired headquarters. What's so special about this room, you might wonder? Well, I'd love to show you, but being the proud white knight that I am, I chose to warn her about the slaver and also get rid of her problem, so I never got any key, not even his loot. What a shame. Another significant gameplay feature in Wasteland 3 is the fucking car, named the Kodiak. You can customize a few things on it, but it'll never go past Need for Speed Underground depth. You can replace the chassis, the weapon, the special motor, armor plating, and they all have different stats, even though it's nothing crazy. And even the looks. of your recently priced car. The best part about this is the fact that you can find a different AI module somewhere in the wastes, the Morningstar. It has an actual personality that you can interact with throughout the game after you find it.
Perhaps God might permit me to at last see President Reagan.
Luckily for you people who want to seek him out on their own, I didn't manage to get him. But you can, if you have the proper talents to cast him. Alright, enough of that. I'd agree with anyone who says there's much in the ways of exploration, as the variety of both weapon and damage types allow for a pretty good pile of weapons to be found. Pairing this with locked containers or containers locked by nearby terminals makes a good skill check soup. But loot is not limited to gear. You can find the Raiders' cum sock, and you can even pee on snowballs and have a fun little STD snowball fight between rangers. You can even find and read books in the Wasteland. In the open world, you can stumble across hidden safes or abandoned camps that are ridden with loot, and they usually also require a skill check to get inside without getting hurt. You could also get ambushed in random encounters on the map, and this reminds me of a legendary Gunrock's Flash game. Hell, am I talking about Wasteland 3 or Gunrocks at this point? When it comes to finding secret or hidden things in instances, it's difficult only until you notice you can hold shift to have every container highlighted around you. I'm aware these games excel in writing above all else.
I need some executive time with Señorita Puerca.
And I actually enjoy reading the description of a book that has penises drawn on it. And while looting isn't as fun as in other games, it's always, however, vastly intellectually stimulating to read item descriptions.
I like it, could you?
And passing skill checks can be very rewarding. While this game has factions in it, you can't join any of them because you're part of one already, the Desert Rangers. You do, however, have a fame bar that you can fill, and it helps with certain dialogue interactions.
And Mother Nancy herself offered you an audience with Ronnie! What an honor!
You also interact with major factions that can turn out to like, love, hate, or dislike you, depending on your dialogue or homicide choices in the Wasteland. You've got the Patriarch's Marshals, which remind me a lot of Romanian police officers. They're slow, corrupt, and would rather stare at you than intervene, even in extreme situations. Refugees are the unwashed masses. They flood the cities and they're only useful as mechanics or famed razors. They're like Wasteland's version of fallen-off settlers with backgrounds and stories, but they often find themselves in conflict with the post-apocalyptic rich aristocracy, the 100 Families. The 100 Families take up residence in the rich living area of Colorado Springs. If you've ever wanted to call someone out for being arrogant and useless vampires, it's these folks. They have all the money, entitlement, and sometimes even technology in the entire world, yet they still choose to suck on each other for more of the Patriarch's favor and no one else's. Unless we're talking about close relatives, personal wealth, or personal success. Those are definitely their main interests. But you could consider each raider group a faction of its own, but they're all hostile to you no matter what. Hey, guess what? I'm gonna talk about them anyway. The Dorseys. They're the first group of pillaging bastards you encounter in the entire game. They're the ones who assault you on the dam right before reaching Colorado Springs, but their lore goes deeper than just plains raiders. Allegedly, the Dorseys were once part of the 100 Families, and they allegedly wanted Colorado Springs to be run democratically, with elections every now and then, and, allegedly, the Patriarch didn't like this, so he sent a close friend to solve the problem. Instead, the problem got big enough that they started being called raiders. The Dorseys also have a certain allure with nature, hunting, and the wilds in general. They would definitely go for a ride with Joker, if they own Colorado. Los Payasos. You meet them throughout the game, be it in closed instances such as the Bazaar, or their very own circus tent, or in random encounters on the world map. They, as the name suggests, are fucking mental clowns. They're willing to laugh at the death of one of their own because life is a joke.
That was hilarious!
But don't you dare mock their red noses. They hate when someone other than their own picks on them.
Arriba, payasos, ayúdame!
Their leader is Lecherito, which means milk. And I'm not sure I understand the joke. I never saw him carrying any jugs around with him. But I've already started daydreaming, so... The Godfishers. I think I only saw them in Denver. That is, excluding the place where all the Plains gangs meet up around the end of the game. If you miss ancient Christianity or Caesar's Legion from New Vegas, where crucifixions would happen daily, you're gonna love this. The Godfishers make kites out of their enemy's skin, then launch and fly them towards the sky, where their god resides. It's all in the name after all. They're fishing for God, in the sky. The human skin bait is, just a contemporary spy specific to them. The Scar Collectors. I actually know fuck all about them in comparison to the other raider groups. Only certain thing I can say is that they love cybernetic implants and that they're loyal to Liberty, the Patriarch's daughter. There's also the Cowboy Cannibals somewhere in the game, and they could be considered raiders, I guess, since they're cannibals. They're also worth mentioning because the fight with them carries a rather entrancing song, and you can even choose to dabble in their own peculiar palette, even though I didn't. All the more reason to try it out on your own and buy the game for yourself.
Sound design.
Energy damage and explosions are a pinnacle of Wasteland 3's amalgamation of sounds. They're not the only ones that are part of the pack, however. Guns and melee weapons benefit from impactful sound effects too, and the UI sounds consisting of enemies dying, allies dying, the strike bar being filled, the squad being buffed by a leader boss kill, and even the strike meter body part selection add to the experience. Ambient or miscellaneous sound effects make no exception, mind you. The wind blowing and the lightning striking randomly while the codex tracks traverse the snowy wasteland to plop wild deers in the open world map, or all the electronic hardware noise in the Ranger HQ command room build an immersive world to lose yourself in. I specifically like how robots sound in the game. They don't exactly sound like budget toasters, but they're not human either. Synths sound human, but their whole goal is to wipe humanity out to secure their own survival. At least they don't look very human. Not sure if you're familiar with the ambient music in the classic Fallouts or in New Vegas, but it was made by the same person who composed Wasteland 3's soundtrack. And Wasteland 2, and probably the original Wasteland as well. There's a radio that randomly opens up and says random stuff sometimes in open world, but most of the time you will hear music played by one of 2 radio host NPCs you can meet in the game. Music that was picked by, or written by, Mark Morgan. He also made the non-lyrical soundtrack, and if you say that it doesn't fit the game's theme, you're walking the plank. My bias may be showing here, but half the reason for which I bought the game in the first place was to hear Morgan's art once more. God, I love this man. Both parasocially and platonically.
Hey people, we're doing graphics today.
The game's visual fidelity is pretty good for an isometric turn-based RPG made in Unity. In fact, it looks far too good for a game made in Unity. Even if it says that whenever you fire up the game, I had to look up the game engine because of how well it looked and how bad it ran at launch. Characters look detailed, and watch out for different armor pieces that you can equip because you might give your eyes a bit too much candy at a time. The same can be said about weapons, however 3D models are not everything on display. Instead, I found myself more fascinated by the 2D icons of inventory, gear, loading screen art, character portraits, or even the UI itself, even though people were disapproving of the futuristic look in comparison to the UI of Wasteland 2. It all adds up to a big piece of art in the end. Visual effects of explosions, energy, cold or fire-based damage are possibly going to catch your eye more often than what caught mine. Plasma grenades and energy weapons have mesmerizing, pink sparks flying everywhere on impact. Cryo weaponry makes you yearn for the nuclear Mojave Desert when you see the steam caused by icy projectiles, and fire makes you content for the nuclear winter you find yourself in. Load times were extremely slow at launch, reaching up to 50 seconds even when moved to an SSD, but InXile seems to be working on patching the engine problems apparent ever since. Speaking of patches, games getting updates on bugs and glitches all the time. They even post on their own site and Twitter the exact changes they make. I mostly encountered minor glitches that washed down my double brain cell committee, such as party squad rearranging itself on instance change, but people playing on console had random crashes from what I've heard. That's bad reputation as an issue at launch, but the backlash and the interactions were generally more wholesome than one would expect from Twitter. It's also got a multiplayer mode, but I never found random players to join. In spite of that, however, there seem to be more complications with it than if you were to play single player.
Final rating.
Wasteland 3 is an artistic breakthrough. Its writing rivals even the most symbolic of classic poetry.
Holy shit! What are you guys doing here?
And the visual components make you wish there was a future like this one in store for us. Maybe not the apocalypse part, but you know what I mean. My final rating for the game is, actually, not that important, but I'm handing you 9 frozen ferrets out of the 10 that I have, King. Make sure you get the correct rocket launcher to use them properly, and to stay tuned for more future content if you enjoy what you saw here. Peace out, homies.